So I'm hoping that 2023 is a year that we can see Max Cámara, Valencia's greatest murder detective, reappear in a novel, in the 7th novel in the series. And as part of the preparation that I'm doing for writing the 7th novel, I'm rereading the 6 existing Max Cámara novels because I haven't read them before, and I wanted to share my thoughts about them with you. So just in the past 10 minutes or so, I finished rereading for the first time Audible Kills You, which is the first in the Max Cámara series. Now, I wrote that book, I started writing that book almost exactly 15 years ago. I'd already written 4 non-fiction books by that time, and my wife Salud was pregnant with our first child, and it just seemed like a natural thing to do. I wanted to spend some time at home. I wanted to spend more time at home because obviously, you know, we're going to have a baby and I was going to be needed, and I wanted to be part of that experience, and I didn't want to be traveling a lot as I had been doing research for the non-fiction books that I've been doing in the past. So it seemed like a natural transition in some ways to start writing fiction at that time. And what better thing to do, what better genre to write than crime fiction? So I was living in Valencia and I had plenty of inspiration around me. But I had decided from quite early on that I wanted to write a book around bullfighting. Bullfighting is this incredibly violent cultural activity at the heart of Spanish society and history. And, you know, you can't really understand Spain without having some kind of a handle on bullfighting. And I hadn't written anything on bullfighting, and I wanted to explore the subject more, do some research on it, and get a better understanding of it. So I wanted to set a novel, a crime novel, a murder in the world of bullfighting, because obviously there's this violent cultural artistic activity, and to throw a murder into the middle of that just seemed to throw up all kinds of interesting questions that I could explore in the novel. And also in the symbolism of bullfighting, there is this incredible relationship there between violence and aggression, and on the one hand, and sexuality and fertility on the other hand. If you dig deep, as I did for researching the novels, you dig deep into the symbolism of bullfighting, these two elements are brought together and unified in this sort of quite unique way, but absolutely fascinating. It was sex and death, essentially, sex and death thrown together in the activity of bullfighting. So to have a murder there set in that world seemed like a perfect thing to do. And at the time, so 15 years ago, bullfighting was headline news in Spain because the Catalan authorities had been talking for some time about the possibility of banning bullfights, and they still hadn't done it by that point. Now, obviously, they have. And so it was big news. People were talking about bullfighting a lot. A lot of people were wondering if it was just going to sort of die a death. There were fewer and fewer people going to bullfights. And then into the middle of this national debate, there came the figure of this bullfighter called José Tomás. Now, José Tomás had been a bullfighter before, and he'd gone into sort of an early retirement. But he then, in the middle of all this debate about whether bullfighting was going to survive or not, he made a return. He came back into the bullring, and it was absolute headline news. It electrified the world of bullfighting. He was on the front page of newspapers, major newspapers like El País, and people were talking about bullfighting again because José Tomás brought a very clean, pure, slightly more old-fashioned style of bullfighting. You know, he really put his life on the line in the bullring in a way that other bullfighters perhaps didn't. And so it electrified the world of bullfighting, his return, and it made people talk a lot about, well, look, this is, you know, he's our savior, he's the savior of bullfighting. And with him back in the ring, it means that bullfighting, the future of bullfighting is certain, is saved, as it were. So I kind of wanted to use a figure similar to José Tomás, and to have him as the victim of a murder. And obviously he would have to be murdered in the middle of the, you know, his body is found in the middle of the bullring, you know, in this sort of arena of death where animals are killed on a very regular basis. You know, this man who kills bulls for a living is found dead. So that was the sort of, that's how I wanted things to start. And then as I started investigating a bit more, I found out all kinds of interesting things. Like, for example, the man who's sort of in charge of a bullfight, the president, the man who's making all kinds of decisions about how the bullfighting is going, is often a top-ranking policeman in the local town or city. And suddenly I thought, oh, that's really interesting. You know, maybe I can have a murder detective who's there, you know, at the scene of the crime as the president of what's going on, the president of the actual bullfight. And then I thought, well, what if you had a detective who's there overseeing this bullfight, but he isn't a fan, he isn't an aficionado of bullfighting? And then that threw up all kinds of things. And suddenly the story seemed to take off in all kinds of ways. And I remember thinking that I needed a detective, obviously, as my main character. I was thinking about writing a series, and it was almost immediately that I had that thought that the character Max Cámara, my detective, Chief Inspector Max Cámara of the Spanish National Police, he just sort of seemed to fall down right in front of me, just sort of appear, as it were, like ad from the heavens. Quite extraordinary experience, and he almost fully formed. I knew exactly who he was, what kind of a person he was, what kind of a detective he would be, you know, what his love life would be like, all kinds of things. It was an extraordinary experience. And so I started writing the novel. I started writing what turned into Or the Bull Kills You. Now, I remember writing the first half of it, roughly the first half of it, in the month or so before our first son was actually born. And then that all happened, and I had to take a few weeks off, obviously, and it was an incredibly beautiful and emotional moment. And it was summer. And then I think in the August, I went back to a library in Valencia where I used to go and write, and I finished the novel there. Probably took me another month or two to finish the novel. So all in all, probably took me 3 or 4 months, I should think, to write the book. And I've just finished rereading it now, about 10 or 15 minutes ago. And what do I think about it? Well, I think it's a good very good first novel in the crime series. I mean, I was laughing out loud. It's funny I don't reread my own books. And so to have this experience of rereading this was quite strange, quite daunting at first. I'm my own harshest critic, as probably most authors and artists are. And so I was slightly reluctant to do this. But the more I read, the happier I felt about the book. And the funnier. I've forgotten how much humor was in there and how funny Max is, and his grandfather, Hilario, who lives in Albacete, who grows all these marijuana plants. He's an old anarchist who grows these marijuana plants for Max, just to keep him on his side of the law, as it were. And that relationship is explored as the novels go on. I remember that very much so. So it was, and yeah, lots of funny moments, and that was great. And also the symbolism and how this tension between the violence of the bullfight and the fertility and the sexuality that I was talking about, how that's played out in Max's own life. Obviously, I was becoming a father for the very first time, so these ideas of fatherhood, fertility, they were big in my own mind at the time. It's interesting how that's reflected and that's coming out in the novel. So all in all, I'm happy with it. It's not a perfect novel. My inner critic, my inner editor is there, wanting to sort of, I'd change that sentence, or I'd cut that word or cut that phrase out. I think that's just normal. But certainly after the first 100 pages, where I'm sort of finding my feet, I think, a little bit, after that, it really begins to flow. And I think it's a really good novel. And actually, I'm geared up now. I really want to read the rest of this series, and I kind of want to dive back into that world of Max Cámara. It's been a long time, so this has been an exciting experience for me. And as soon as I finish this video, I'm going to go and pick up the second in the series, and I'm going to start reading that. So just to remind you that I'm doing this as part of a crowdfunder campaign, because I need to raise the necessary funds to bring back Max in 2023. I want to republish the 6 existing novels, and I need to write the 7th novel in the series, and for that I need some funds. So please look at the link below in this video, help me if you can, help Max come back in 2023, and together we can do this. Thank you. I really appreciate Appreciate all your help. A lot of you have already signed up and have already promised and made donations, and I really appreciate that. And if we keep going, we can together make Max come back in 2023. Thank you very much. Thank you.